Welcome to another episode of Effortless Coding. My name is Sam and I'm glad that you've joined us in this new episode. Now in this episode, we are going to talk about measurement units in CSS. Now CSS allows different types of measurement units. These measurement units can be both absolute, such as pixels, points, centimeters and all that, or they can as well be relative, such as a percentage or M. They are called EM units, M units, which always refer relative to a certain value. You always need these values when you want to define specific, elements within your HTML page, and you want to apply measurements to those particular elements. So you will need these particular measurement units. So for example, as you can see on my screen, open the CSS file that we've been dealing with. In this case, it's called style.css, as you can see on my screen. If you've not created that, kindly go back to the previous tutorials so that you know how we created these. Just type border :1 px, as you can see what I'm doing on my screen, space solid space red. So basically in this case, we've just said we want our border. If we ever use this element called border in our HTML element, we'll give it, it will be 1 pixels in size, and it will be solid, meaning it will not be dotted or dashed. It will be solid, and we'll give it a color red. So the px, let's not focus on the other, let's focus on the unit here. The px here means pixels, and we'll define what all these units mean. But just in a nutshell, a px is the way you can always look at your screen and say these are pixelated. So screens are always measured in pixels. So when you say 1 px, it means 1 px unit of that screen, right? But we'll talk about the units in a few. Now, there's also what we call a percentage unit. A percentage unit, as you can see the definition on my screen, it defines a measurement as a percentage relative to another value. Remember, we said measurement units can either be absolute or relative. The percentage unit is relative, so it has to be relative to another value, and typically it's that of an enclosing element. So for example, type this on your screen, P as a paragraph, then open the curly brackets. For those people who have gone through the CSS, parts of a CSS rule, you know how to write a CSS rule. These are CSS rules. So P, curly brackets opening, then font hyphen size, 16 pts. That's a point. Just disregard that. Then put a semicolon. Then continue and type line hyphen height, 125%. So the 125%, and then close with a curly bracket, closing curly bracket. So what 125% basically means is it's actually the line height will be 125% of the original font size that you had specified. So if, for example, you had specified the original size as 12, it will calculate 125% of that 12 px or points. So just know it's relative to that enclosing element that you have. Another unit is called centimeters, which is denoted by cm. This is an absolute unit, and it defines a measurement in centimeters. We also have EM. As I told you, there are two relative units that you can use. There's the percentage, which we've already covered. Then there is the EM, is a relative measurement for the height of a font in EM spaces. So EM basically is equivalent to the size of a given font. So if you assign a font as 12 points, let's say your font is 12 points, each EM unit would be 12 points. So when you say 2 EM, for example, you go to another CSS rule and assign the font size to 2 EM, it will refer to the original font size you had set as 12 points, and the 2 EM in this case would be equivalent to 24 points. Then we have another one called EX, which is also a relative unit. EX or X defines a measurement relative to a font's X height, which is determined by the height of that font's lowercase x letter. So if, for example, you have set font type, for example, Times New Roman, and the height of that lowercase x value in Times Roman is, for example, 12 in height, 12 centimeters. So when you say EX, it means the height in EX, 1EX will be the height of that lowercase x in Times New Roman. So if you go to a different font, that height will change because the font has changed. So 1EX will be equivalent to the height of that font's lowercase x letter. Then we have another unit called inch, which is denoted by IN, which defines measurement in units, in inches. We also have which denotes millimeters, so it defines measurement in millimeters. We also have what we call PC, which basically defines measurements in what we call picas. Now, picas, as you can see on the definition, a pica is equivalent to 12 points. So that's there. If you look at an inch is like 72 points. Right? If you look at 1 inch is equivalent to 72 points. Now, if you're supposed to also refer the inches in picas, you will say that 1 inch is 6 picas, right? Because 1 pica is equivalent to 12 points. So I want you to also know that, but you will rarely use such. You will choose whichever you want to use in your CSS. Remember, it's you who defines your CSS. So if you feel like using picas is also a difficult thing for you, you can decide to use points or pixels or whichever. We also have PT. I think we've talked about PT. PT just defines a measurement in point, and a point is defined as 1/72 of an inch. So I hope you've understood the measurement units we have in CSS, and until next time, kudos!